Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Jean Piaget is one of the most influential cognitive theorists. Piaget was inspired to explore children's ability to think and reason by watching his own children's development. He was one of the first to recognize and map out the ways in which children's thought differs from that of adults. His interest in this area began when he was asked to test the IQ of children and began to notice that there was a pattern in their wrong answers. He believed that children's intellectual skills change over time through maturation. Children of differing ages interpret the world differently. Piaget believed our desire to understand the world comes from a need for cognitive equilibrium. This is an agreement or balance between what we sense in the outside world and what we know in our minds. If we experience something that we cannot understand, we try to restore the balance by either changing our thoughts or by altering the experience to fit into what we do understand. Perhaps you meet someone who is very different from anyone you know. How do you make sense of this person? You might use them to establish a new category of people in your mind, or you might think about how they are similar to someone else. A schema or schemas are categories of knowledge. They are like mental boxes of concepts. A child has to learn many concepts. They may have a schema for under and soft, or running and sour. All of these are schema. Our efforts to understand the world around us lead us to develop new schema and to modify old ones. One way to make sense of new experiences is to focus on how they are similar to what we already know. This is assimilation. So the person we meet who is very different may be understood as being sort of like my brother, or his voice sounds a lot like yours. Or a new food may be assimilated when we determine that it tastes like chicken. Another way to make sense of the world is to change our mind. We can make a cognitive accommodation to this new experience by adding new schema. This food is unlike anything I've tasted before. I now have a new category of foods that are bittersweet in flavor, for instance. This is accommodation. Do you accommodate or assimilate more frequently? Children accommodate more frequently as they build new schema. Adults tend to look for similarity in their experience and assimilate. They may be less inclined to think outside the box. Piaget proposed different ways of understanding that are associated with maturation. He divided this into 4 stages. Sensory motor stage. During the sensory motor stage, children rely on use of the senses and motor skills. From birth until about age 2, the infant knows by tasting, smelling, touching, hearing, and moving objects around. This is a real hands-on type of knowledge. Pre-operational stage. In the pre-operational stage, children from ages 2 to 7 become able to think about the world using symbols. A symbol is something that stands for something else. The use of language, whether it is in the form of words or gestures, facilitates knowing and communicating about the world. This is the hallmark of pre-operational intelligence and occurs in early childhood. However, these children are pre-operational or pre-logical. They still do not understand how the physical world operates. They may, for instance, fear that they will go down the drain if they sit at the front of the bathtub, even though they are too big. Concrete operational. Children in the concrete operational stage, ages 7 to 11, develop the ability to think logically about the physical world. Middle childhood is a time of understanding concepts such as size, distance, and constancy of matter, and cause and effect relationships. A child knows that a scrambled egg is still an egg, and that 8 ounces of water is still 8 ounces, no matter what shape of glass contains it. Formal operational. During the formal operational stage, children at about age 12 acquire the ability to think logically about concrete and abstract events. The teenager who has reached this stage is able to consider possibilities and to contemplate ideas about situations that have never been directly encountered. More abstract understanding of religious ideas or morals or ethics and abstract principles such as freedom and dignity can be considered. Criticisms of Piaget's theory. Piaget has been criticized for overemphasizing the role that physical maturation plays in cognitive development and in underestimating the role that culture and interaction or experience plays in cognitive development. Looking across cultures reveals considerable variation in what children are able to do at various ages. Piaget may have underestimated what children are capable of given the right circumstances. Main points to note about Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Piaget, one of the most influential cognitive theorists, believed that understanding is motivated by trying to balance what we sense in the world and what we know in our minds. Understanding is organized through creating categories of knowledge. When presented with new knowledge, we may add new schema or modify existing ones. Children's understanding of the world changes as their cognitive skills mature through 4 stages: sensory motor stage, pre-operational stage, concrete operational stage, and formal operational stage.